So hi everyone, I'm very excited to be moderating this panel. Topic I'm very passionate about, sustainable entrepreneurship. We only have about 30 minutes, so my goal is pretty straightforward. I want the audience to have a better understanding of what real sustainable entrepreneurship is, what it takes to build. Wait, thank you. I don't think There we go. What it takes to build one of those companies and really how the sector is looking. We have two amazing panelists. Please welcome our panelists. Um, so my first question is a very simple question, but I think it's a very important question, and it's, in your perspective, what's sustainable entrepreneurship? Chloe and Margarita, please give me your perspective.
Um, well, I think it's when someone's trying to solve a specific problem that has an impact either social or environmental, and they're trying to do it in the long term, in a long term perspective. So it's something different from philanthropy where you can help, but the funds are not always coming in or not always available. Sustainable entrepreneurship means that you're trying to make something that can be on the like forever in the long term.
For sure, and I'll build off of that. So for me, sustainable entrepreneurship is, first of all, identifying what sustainability means for each person. It depends on what sector you're in. So, sustainability could mean 1,000 different things depending on who you are and where the background you're coming from. So identifying your lens of sustainability, and then exactly what you were saying earlier, ensuring that there's long-term reoccurring resources. So ensuring that the initiative and the impact that you're trying to create, you are able to do that long term, and that you have reoccurring resources and investment.
That's really interesting. I think building upon that, my next question is really, what are the things that sustainability-focused businesses need to have to be successful? And I think you were mentioning a couple of those topics, but from your perspective, what are the most important things?
I think from my perspective and background and just, building out our own large-scale recycling facility to now leading some of Canada's largest cleanups, and starting startups all over Latin America, you need a clear vision and clear objectives, and writing out what project you want to complete with your methodology. Taking the time to develop a clear methodology with clear objectives is key in order to be able to communicate the project or your vision to either investors or the civil society to gain allies, build partnerships. So really taking that time to develop your idea, and then going forth. And I mean, your idea is going to change, and the plan you make isn't, exactly how it's going to go. So, but you need to start somewhere, and so creating that starting place is really key in order to start building your business or your entrepreneurship initiative.
And I think, Chloe, that's super interesting, and you have a lot of experience building startups in the sustainable space. Can you tell us a little bit more your story? What challenges you had to overcome, specifically when it came to capital, and overall, what were the major challenges that you had to face building these types of businesses?
Yeah, I think there's so many challenges. Where do you even start? I think thinking through the life cycle of the business you're trying to create and the product you're trying to sell. So in my case, when we talk about the recycling facilities that we build, looking at using recycled content in products. So a major challenge that we're facing right now in helping to build the plastic circular economy is, now that we have the recycled content, who's going to buy that content? Who are the manufacturers who have the knowledge to use that content in the brands? We have got a lineup of brands that want to buy green and they want to, jump on board of the circular economy. But without every step of the way and the equation worked out, it's very hard to achieve success right now. So really thinking through the whole life cycle and methodology of the product you're trying to build is absolutely key.
Okay. And I think one of the most important things in building what you were talking about is building a self-sustainable business. And I want to talk a little bit more about the consumer itself. And I'm going to get both of your perspectives. From your perspective, do you think the market's reception, what do you think is the market reception towards sustainable products? Do you really believe they're willing to pay a premium for it?
Sure, I'll take that one. I think that the market is willing to pay a bit extra once they know how their consumption is helping or having an impact. I think it's also very romantic to think that everyone is going to buy a more expensive bottle of water because it's not plastic. But you've got to think of like the bigger market. The bigger market is still very focused on pricing. So that's very important to for companies like to change the products they're having, but making sure that the price point of those products isn't that much higher, because otherwise it's always still difficult for people to be able to purchase or to be able to be part of the bigger market. On the other side, I think there's a big responsibility on the part of corporates to make these products available and to make harmful products not available anymore, knowing the harm that they cause.
Yeah, I completely agree. So volume. The more volume you have, the price will go down. So just making sustainability and green products the norm. Starting to incentivize purchasing green products, incentivize businesses to be able to access and contribute to a green economy is going to be absolutely key. And exactly what you're saying, starting to eliminate almost through carrot or stick methodologies, incentivizing the greener options, and then also, I know people don't like the word tax, but taxing or eliminating subsidies to products or methodologies that are more harmful for the environment and the communities in which they serve. So
I want to build a little bit upon that. How do we do that? How do we get the right policies in place? Who chooses those policies, and how are we supposed to do that?
great question. Do you want to take that?
It has to start from like different initiatives, right? So like the government can do so much, but it's also a lot, I think, about education, about people knowing what's good and what's not, or like how their way of behavior impacts like the environment, for example. So it's not only about setting rules, but about educating people so that they know better.
I would say education, and the government moves very slow. And depending on what country you're in, sometimes the government doesn't always have the best interests at heart for its people. So to really try to start building these solutions, the power is with the people. And what we've done and successfully done is build support amongst ENGOs, businesses, industry. If we can show that there's benefits to doing something a different way, to starting to build a different model, eventually the government doesn't have a choice but to listen. So that might be opportunistic, but especially coming from Canada, but that is the experience that we've had, is really starting to build the grassroots power from a bottom up, but at the same time being able to communicate to our government officials from a top down. So where we find this change happening is in this sweet spot where top down governance meets bottom up grassroots activity. So that's what.
So Building upon that topic, I want to talk a little bit about the ecosystem. And I think Margarita and Chloe, you have very different ecosystems. One more in the Latin American market, and you more in Canada. What do you think it's missing, and what do you think are the right things we're doing right now to help sustainable businesses?
I think that's a good question, and I don't think that the environment it's missing something. I think the businesses here in Latin America are already creating a lot of impact, are already doing a lot of things sustainably. What my perspective is that the businesses aren't measuring all this impact, social or environmental, that they're creating. So because they weren't born out of, oh, I want to be a social business and I'll start doing this. They just started the business, and they don't have like they haven't focused on it. But once they start, I think measuring what they're doing, how they're impacting through their work, then you start paying more attention to it. So your decision making changes, so that you focus more on impact on social endeavors.
Yeah, I would agree. Setting really clear KPIs or performance indicator metrics from the very beginning of starting your business, and a methodology in terms of measuring or quantifying that is going to be able to take you leaps and bounds. I think another thing that's also missing when we talk about transitioning or moving into a sustainable environment or business are the mechanisms in which to support business to really access the ways in which doing that. So from my perspective, just giving an example, we're making plastic pellets to support the circular economy, but 90% of our manufacturers don't know how to use recycled content. So how do we, but we have a lineup of customers, but how do we actually make a product now? So when we talk to the manufacturers, they have to invest in retraining, retooling their equipment, completely reformulizing their recipe for some of their products. And a lot of the manufacturers don't have the investment or the will at this point to do that. So how do we make mechanisms in which that support manufacturers, all kind of facets of business or industry, to take that leap, take the risk, to start really embodying and investing in these green solutions, to take it to the next level, to support startups, to support these new initiatives to come forward.
And Margarita, I want you to build on your experience on this. I think when we were talking, you were talking about the mentoring you guys do with the companies in your fund and the impact that it has. Because the thing I've noticed is that when it comes to accessing capital, what happens with a lot of companies in Latin America is that they don't have, like you said, the measurements and the professionalism to go and raise capital to an institutional investor. And you guys do a pretty good job at mentoring them to go through that process, measuring the right things so they're professional enough to go and do it. Can you talk about that?
Sure, that's part of the add-on that we give. I work at IDC, and we have Acceso Impact Fund. For those of you that don't know, it's a fund that it's focused for companies in Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean that have a social or environmental impact. So what we find is that entrepreneurs that come our way are usually have the best intentions. They are great at the work they're doing, but they don't have like maybe the financial part in order or the legal part in order. What we want is to mentor them through our due diligence process so that they are able to have everything in order, so that after having a loan from Acceso, then they can access cheaper, better capital, or that they can attract investors. So it takes a long time. You see companies that have a lot of revenues, but sometimes like the back office isn't in order. And it's something that they need help with most of the time. On the capital side, what we've found is that we have to focus on patient capital. So it's very difficult to go, and it's, again, romantic to say, oh, you can get market returns from investing in impact. On my perspective, you need to be conscious of the impact that people are going to create and balance out what financial return you want to get versus what impact it's important for you that the business is making. So providing them with patient capital is one. Another one is subsequent rounds of financing. What we're doing is that we are offering a certain amount of financing, but they know that they can come after certain milestones that they reach. They know that they can come back to us and that we'll be able to work with them. So that helps them so that they're not burdened with a big financial cost while they don't need the capital. And we provide them capital as they grow. So those are two things that I think are helping on the capital side. And the last one would be that we're providing them with revenue-based financing, which sometimes it's difficult for the entrepreneur to manage. But the goal is that we're helping them to accompany them as they grow. So if they have like a seasonal business, they don't have the financial burden when their sales aren't that great. Or once they do escalate their sales, then they repay faster, so they won't have the financial burden of a debt. So those are like the three initiatives that we're trying to build on the fund so that we can help the social entrepreneurs.
Thank you. And Chloe, I'm sure that throughout your entrepreneurial journey, capital was a very important thing. And I want you to walk us, what were the major challenges and how did you guys tackle them? Because I think it's very different from a business in Canada, from what you were explaining to me, than from one in Latin America. How have you guys managed that challenge?
For sure. There's a saying in Canada that's, how do you eat a moose? One bite at a time, right? So you have this vision, this idea, and now it's time to really break it down step by step. So in order to get capital, we're seeking programs like Margarita's, which are key in taking that first chance, that risk in a new idea. So we started with research and design. We were able to raise a startup of maybe $100,000 to really move forward and start to research and design new technologies. What's been tried, what can we do to push things towards success, and building your success stories are key. So you need to be able to show metrics, to have at least one or two success stories in your pocket in order to present to investors, to show them that by investing with you, there's still a risk, but it's a minimized risk. So from the point of getting that initial investment, we were then able to prove success in what we were developing, and then we went for a second round of investment, exactly as you're recommending or discussing. So I guess it might not be as different up in Canada as it is here in Latin America. But from that point then of additional investment, then we look to commercialize. So from commercialization then, you start to build out the markets and the customers, and that's how we really started. And now, we've raised more than, I think, 16 million at this point in terms of developing our recycling facilities. We've got projects now in Panama, Mexico. We're looking here at expanding into Guatemala, on the Atlantic coast of Canada. So it's happening very quickly, but it is because of those success stories, that initial investment, and then you need the grit. You need to be able to want what it is you are going after, and to be able to stick it through the challenging times. The life of an entrepreneur is not easy. There's a lot of, it's kind of like a roller coaster, lows and highs, and you need to be able to stay on the ride for all of it. And building your partnerships and your allies is absolutely key. So surrounding yourself with people that believe in what you are trying to do, and surrounding yourself with people that know more than what you do in certain realms of your business. So you want to surround yourself with experts that can bring that knowledge and expertise into the development of your business, so that you don't have to maybe learn as many failings. But it is important to remember that through those failings, it is only through those that you're going to be able to get better, and you're going to learn from that, and then you're going to, you know, make your whole process better and continue to get more investment by improving what you're trying to do. So that's how we kind of got started and kind of where we've headed. We run now the largest marine plastic processing center in Canada, and with the breadth of materials we collect in North America, which is really exciting. Yeah, really exciting. And yeah, I'm always here to share the experience and the learnings that we've gone through, because there's been a lot. So.
Yeah, I want to talk in this topic specifically in capital, the markets, and everything. I think a very important topic, at least in my experience, is making businesses self-sustainable eventually. I think a very important thing is having that clear vision of how this is going to become self-sustainable. How do you guys approach that? Margarita, what do you look in companies to make them self-sustainable?
Like I was saying, we work a lot on the projections of the companies. We go deep on our due diligence and the financial due diligence to make sure that even though we're impact first fund, we know that the business might have the best intentions to create a specific impact, but if they're not sustainable, it won't be there for a long time. So we work with the strategy and the financing of the company, and also we try to walk hand in hand with the entrepreneur through, like, sometimes when they're trying to do an impact, they're trying to measure everything. I'm covering all these SDGs. What we tell them is that they have limited resources, so focus on the three KPIs that you want to focus on. Measure those, because that way it'll help you not put all your resources into measuring, but into building a business like you should.
I would say, to add on to that, definitely do your due diligence and get to learn your ecosystem. So if you have an idea, you need to understand if it actually is novel or not, if it is innovative or not. You need to understand the other people that are, and companies that are in the same market. Who's doing what, where are they doing it, how are they doing it? And by identifying those simple questions, you're going to be able to know what route to take within your own business to create that edge and to create that engagement with an investor that can bring you to the next level. So yeah, and identifying those KPIs are totally critical.
I just want to add one more thing that came to mind when you said about the who's doing what. A lot of entrepreneurs come our way asking for capital, but at the end, what they need it's not capital. What they need, what it's better for them, it's a network, a connection, someone that can provide them with something. So, us having been in the market for more than 25 years, we've had on the business side worked with a lot of people, so we're able to provide them more with connections or with un consejo. So that sometimes it's a lot more valuable than the money that you're able to give them.
Yeah, exactly.
An important question, and I think this is a challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs face. What comes first, the profit or their impact? And how do you guys measure that?
Like I said before, I think the impact, it's great. It's what the entrepreneur is aiming for. But if you don't do it in a sustainable manner, then it won't be there for a long time. So you do need to focus on the financial part of it, on the sustainable part of it, in order to achieve what is your mission to achieve.
Yeah, I think creating that vision, or getting a sense of the impact you want to create is the first step, really, so that you have a direction. But then ensuring that you can build out a robust framework, by doing your due diligence, looking at the market that exists for that. If it's a totally new innovation, looking at consumer uptake. what is the potential of the sale of your product, and then really building out a robust financial system, at least projections, if it's really new, that you can lean on to, that makes sense, that you can present to an investor.
So we're about running out of time, so I have a couple final questions. So if someone in the audience wanted to start a sustainably focused business, what would be your recommendation for them to look at? What would be your framework? What do you think that are the most important things?
Building the business.
Yeah, I would say take time to sit down and write out what you want to create. I can't, voice that or preface that enough. That as you write out what it is you want to create, you're going to get new ideas, or then let it sit and then go back and revisit it, and then you're going to understand where the aspects are you want to change and that sort of thing. And then make sure that you're passionate about it, because without that driving force, you're going to fade away. Another really important thing for entrepreneurs and I'm not the best at this myself, but you need to incorporate self-care practices. Self-care for entrepreneurs is not talked about enough, and entrepreneurs are oftentimes, burn out, and we burn out hard and sometimes fast, depending on how invested you are and how much time you're putting into your business. So it is so important to be able to take care of yourself, and that reflects to your team. So your team will recreate and mimic what it is they see from their leader. So if they see a leader that's literally killing themselves in the process of trying to build a business, they're going to feel that expectation to do the same, and that trickles amongst your business, and you will not have a healthy business. So that self-care piece and that clarity are key to launch you to success in terms of connecting with the right terms of investment.
I think I can't add more to that. I think the passion that you put into it, and making sure that you're okay pivoting from what your first idea was, because that's always going to happen. You'll end up with something totally different from what your first instinct was, and it's okay. And it's okay to not get it at the first try, but to fail fast, they say. So I think that's my important thing.
Just pivot. That word pivot in our company is like kind of front and center because it's so important that you are resilient enough to make that pivot, because it's going to happen. In any entrepreneurship world, pivot and change is kind of central to what we do. So.
Great. Yeah, so we're just about out of time. So I want to thank you, amazing panelists, for your amazing advice. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to moderate this panel. And you, the audience, for listening. Thank you. Please give a round of applause for our panelists.
I just want to ask before our beautiful panelists leave, if there's anybody in the audience that would like to make a specific question to any one of our panelists. We have 5 minutes. Nobody here wants to put... Anyone has a question or an appreciation? Thank you. The gentleman over there. Anyone specific from the panel? Oh, please can you open the mic?
Oh, there it is. Thank you. So my question for Chloe, because you're talking about the transformation and the reskilling required for the employees and your once you go on transition to a sustainable model, right? What has been your experience in green skills in terms of how are we remodeling or reshaping the labor works for us on this type of model?
It's been very challenging, honestly. Without some sort of, at this point, companies who want to do the right thing and are willing to invest in making those transitions, that's really what the driving force is at this stage. What you often see is, the early adopters. Right, and then that starts to put pressure on the market and trickles out to other brands to do something similar so that they can have a better product to communicate to their consumers. However, it could be happening a lot faster. So without government regulation or kind of like carrot stick policy measures, it's moving at a snail's pace at this point, and is reliant on the goodwill and leadership of companies wanting to do the right thing. So,
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Please give them an applause.